This lesson is on flow state and how to achieve it and what it looks like in your life. So we're going to give, this is all part of what's already in the course. We're just going to reinforce some of it as well as give it a little bit of structure and help you to understand that everything that we're teaching in Healed Mind Therapy is encouraging you to do something called be in flow. So be in flow is just a term and you can use it in other, you can describe it in different ways, including being in non-resistance. That would also be a flow state. Accepting things outside of your control would be a flow state. So love is the core of what is happening when we're in flow state, or at least it's not fear. Okay. So they consider flow state, the definition of this is action or non-action. Sometimes it's doing nothing minus fear. So it's when fear is not a factor, that's when we're in flow. This is when you're going to have the best possible relationships, decisions. You're going to have peace because you're doing it in alignment with what feels most loving to you and what you want to do. And we've let go of this idea we have to be responsible for others' thoughts, emotions, and actions. That we can hurt other people's feelings, that we're responsible if someone else gets hurt or feels sad. You are not responsible for others' thoughts, emotions, or actions. How they experience you is outside of your control. What's within your control, though, is how you treat others. You will treat yourself. So if you treat anybody in a way that feels less than loving to you, that will hurt you, regardless of their experience of that. If you treat someone the way that it wouldn't hurt you and you would be in acceptance of that, and then they get triggered and you can't anticipate that. So if you knew that acting a certain way would trigger somebody, would you want that person to do that thing in that situation? And the answer is no, with the exception of if it's going to cause harm. So sometimes you're going to make decisions towards other people that you know that it might cause like them to feel sad or upset, but to not do so would cause harm to yourself or others. And this is why it can be a little complicated, but the core is tell the truth, the truth is the way you want to be treated. Those two will keep you morally taking action within flow, because flow is also always authentic. So authenticity is being your truth without fear. That's the same thing as flow. So authenticity is the same thing as flow. Acceptance is the same thing as flow. So flow is the absence of fear in your decisions, your relationships, your responses, your perception and action that you take. Okay, so we're going to get to the examples in a second. So the core here is we're going to release the idea of we're responsible for anybody else's stuff. So this is in our first block, others' thoughts, emotions, and actions. And we're going to accept that we are responsible to do, if you do anything that you wouldn't want done to you, or you treat yourself in a way that you wouldn't like, you will hurt yourself. So this is why we're considering other people's emotions, with the exception of when it's going to cause harm to yourself. So if, you know, if it wouldn't hurt you to be told no to go to a party, okay, and the other person wants to go to the party, could you go to the party as an act of love to them because you know that they're going to be triggered if you say no? Well, you could as an act of love. However, if it's going to cause you harm to say yes, then that would be the reason why you wouldn't do that. So always guarding between taking action and then causing harm. Let go of fear. That's the core of this lesson. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples because it's very abstract at this point. So an example is breakups. So often people will say, okay, should I leave this relationship? I don't want to leave this relationship because I'm afraid. I want to leave this relationships because they make me feel sad, right? So those would be two things that would not be in flow state. Flow state would sound more like, it feels most loving to me and this other person for me to release this relationship. Or if someone was to pull away from the relationship and say, this is not something I want, you let them. You say, okay, I hear that this is what you want. This is why I think it's not necessary, but I accept and trust you that if you say that this is the most loving thing for us, even though I don't understand, I accept that. So it's being in non-resistance to other people's decisions, not trying to control other people or what they want to do, and letting them make this decision. So not having resistance or fear. So fear in relationships would drive, I'm so afraid of being alone. That's why I have to keep you. Or I'm so afraid of what other people are going to think of you, I'm going to break up with you. So instead of looking at our where the fear is and removing the fear, that would be what we'd recommend with Healed Mind Therapy, is removing the fear and then making decisions about stuff like that. And then parent-child relationship, or any situation where you are offering guidance to people, this idea that should you control. So when you have small children, there's certain things that, are within your control. We don't leave the house until you have a coat and boots on. That's within your control as a parent to ensure that your child doesn't have harm. Okay, so there's basic things like that. But as your child gets older, and we have adult children, teens, and even preteens, I'm sure there's stages in even young childhood where there's things that are outside of your control as a parent. What they do is outside of your control. What you do is within your control. So taking action within your control, releasing things outside of your control, including their ability to make poor decisions. They might make poor decisions. Your job is to tell them, if they're open to hearing what you feel, if they're open for that. And then outside of your control is what they do. And letting that go and being in flowing, trusting that there's a plan and there's purpose, this will bring you peace. Okay. When it comes to decisions, should I go back to university? Should I sell the house? Should I invest in this market? Look at the core behind it. Is it coming from a place of fear? Is it coming from a place of restriction? Well, I have to sell now because the market might fluctuate. That's a fear state. Opposed to, I'm being pulled to, I really like to live by water. That would be a flow state. So what you're being pulled to is very different from restricted. So we can take action from a place of restriction and fear, or we can take action from a place of, it's pulling me. This feels loving to me. Oh, this is what I want to do. That's the energy that we want to make decisions. So when you're getting stuck, trying to find if there's any fear in your mind when it comes to that decision, and looking at that, because that's where your correction is going to be. Okay. And then commitments. What will they think? So that's a fear state mentality. So if you make a commitment to somebody, and then you can't keep it, tell the truth and treat them how you'd want to be treated. Now, one thing that, I teach in psychotherapy, especially to parents who have young children, is when you're making a commitment to anybody or to your children, is to be able to articulate that it's a yes if it feels loving. So can we go to the park? If it feels loving. We can go out this afternoon if it feels loving. And then that way, if the baby brother breaks his arm and it's no longer loving, that child won't say you broke your promise, because we always have that condition. I will do anything as long as it feels loving. And as soon as it doesn't feel loving, that's why we don't follow through with that. And teaching yourself that's your guide, and then teaching others that that's your guide. That's all you'll need to say when you need to cancel or rearrange, is that actually the situation arose where it no longer felt loving for me to do that, and this is my best, right? So sometimes you can explain, but it's really not the point. The point is that it's not loving for you to do it. And over explaining would probably be coming from a place of fear of, I need to make sure that this other person doesn't have hurt feelings, which you're not responsible for. So again, that's a summary that we want to let love guide us, let your pulls guide you. Flow state is what life is all about. You're living in flow state. It's just easy. You have a sense of peace, openness, acceptance. Fear is not driving you. You're not doing actions because you're afraid of what people are going to think or do, or losing love, or how you're going to be perceived. You're just being, and you being authentic, and that's going to bring abundance into your life in many different ways. So let love guide you. What do I want to do? What feels most loving? Okay, those would be the affirmations that you want to reinforce with this lesson. And then, yeah, let love guide. Peace.